Hands, 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 hands. Hello everybody, Chris here, and guess what I'm going to be talking about today in this little video. That's right, it's everybody's favourite bony tentacles that cap off what would otherwise be useless stumps, hands. Initially at least. Like, the whole video isn't going to be just about hands, but whatever, here we go. Everyone has trouble with hands at first. It's no secret. If you want to watch the best tutorial on drawing hands ever created, then check out Mattias Pilhede's video, link in the description, because I am sure that I've butchered his surname. But yeah, so I remember when I was a teenager, I had some books.
I'm not trying to flex on you guys.
Not to show off. One was called How to Draw Anything, and the larger book next to it was called How to Draw Hands. Now, admittedly, the How to Draw Everything book was just a series of and then draw the rest of the damn owl tutorials, but it did always amuse me that drawing hands needed as much training and reference as drawing everything else in existence combined. All this to say that when I was drawing this page, I was scared to do the clean line art on the first panel because there was a heavy focus on hands and included 3 of the bloody things, no less. Well, 2 and a smattering of fingers at least. So I put it off, and I originally planned to draw 2 of them as cotton balls, but then realised that it looked weird next to a hand with distinct fingers. I did also think about making that hand a cotton ball as well, but I felt it muddled the clarity of the drawing, and it wasn't clear enough that the reader was looking at an arm. The hands in those opening few panels freaked me out a bit. Not so much with the hands visible in the panels with the fuller body shots though. I think it's because they're clearly not the focus of the panels, and while the hands aren't the focus of the first 2 panels, they're a lot closer to the focus and the panel is a lot more zoomed in on them, so I felt like it put a lot more pressure on me to render them in a less simplistic way than I would normally. Although they're not really that much more realistic than how I drew them in the bottom panel. But yeah, look, my larger point is I kind of got into my own head with these first couple of panels, and I didn't really start making progress on the page until I allowed myself to put them to one side and come back to them later. Either until I'd warmed up a little more first, or until I couldn't progress without tackling them because I'd done everything else on the page. That is something you'll see in these videos that I get a lot better at doing. If I'm trying to draw something and it's just not quite looking right, or if I can't get the proportions or perspective, I'm much better at either simplifying the shot into something I'm more comfortable with, or I'll leave that panel and come back to it later when I've drawn other stuff and warmed up, or maybe I'll just try again on a different day when I'm, for whatever reason, in a better headspace or my fingers are feeling less stupid. Compare that to how I used to handle that kind of roadblock, which would be I would refuse to leave it alone until I managed to do it there and then, which would yield any number of results really, including but not limited to making a terrible drawing, wasting an entire drawing session failing to get a single rough down, questioning my value as a human being. So yeah, hands can be kind of tricky. I'm sure this isn't the last time I'll ever talk about them, but for the remainder of this video I would like to talk about 2 other things. The first one being the resolution to the page turn moment set up on the previous page. So, the last page aimed to set up the question, what did the doctor see that was so shocking? And hopefully the answer that was given on this page was broken handcuffs on the person he's treating. I liked broken handcuffs as a visual because I think it's engaging, like, it carries with it some inherent tension and circumstances. If someone has handcuffs, it probably means that they're a criminal, aka a bad guy. And if they're a bad guy, then that represents a certain amount of danger to the only other character in the scene. A character who, as I mentioned in the last video, I tried to make as endearing to the audience as possible without laying it on too thick. The fact that the handcuffs are broken also most likely means that he's a criminal who is where he shouldn't be. You can infer criminals already have trouble doing what they're supposed to do, so within that category, filled with people who do what they're not supposed to do, this person stands out even among them in terms of doing shit they're not supposed to do. If that makes any sense whatsoever. I know this is a lot of over-explaining on my part, but I'm breaking down this visual so much because my thought process going into it was, what visuals can I use to save me having to type out the words, "He is an escaped criminal, and that scares people." As with hands, I'll talk more in depth about what I wanted to accomplish with the exposition of these opening pages in later videos, but right now I want to talk about the second major part of this page. It's the introduction for one of the two protagonists. I actually quite liked it. I think it communicates that Jack has a unique way of thinking which could easily be mistaken for outright stupidity. It shows he's quite friendly, which contrasts to the only other thing we know about him at this point, which is he's probably an escaped prisoner, and it's used as a punchline to a joke, which is always good. I mean, it's a punchline in as much as it's used to undercut the tension of the scene without outright deflating the stakes. So, yeah, time for some genuine positivity. I like this character introduction. I feel it's a scene that does a lot of narrative heavy lifting without having to outright state anything. It's also a lot more, character informed than what I've done up until now. Even though experience tells me that in the future I'll look back on this work with embarrassment and derision, it does mark some personal growth in my craft, which is nice. For me, at least. You guys, feel free to hate this as much as you like, and tell me why to your heart's content, because that's really the best way for me to improve my aforementioned craft. So that's about it for the main topics of this video. I think there is actually a little correction in the drawing missing from this footage. I'm pretty sure I went back and moved the fingers on the doctor's hand further from the thumb because, not naming names, but I do follow some artists who occasionally draw finger knuckles in line with the thumb knuckle, if that's what it's called, and yeah, that isn't how that works. Not that I'm an expert by any means, especially looking back at this page. So the flat of the hand on the pinky side is exaggerated more than it probably should be, and the basic form doesn't acknowledge where the pinky knuckle would be. Also, where that flat part of the hand would connect to the wrist, or more specifically just where the wrist is, there should probably be a divot or just something to show that there's a joint there. Aside from that though, I'm pretty happy with this page. If you think about this page and my feelings towards and my experience making them in terms of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood, which why wouldn't you? The first couple of pages I made were quite a depressing slog to get through, and then things didn't start getting fun really until number 2 or 3. Similarly, with the start of JoJo, those early chapters had Jonathan Joestar in a very negative place, and Araki himself has said for readers they were stuck for about a month with the protagonist who is just always losing. But once the story picked up and got going, it started to do really, really well in the reader surveys. It's kind of a strange simile, I know, but it is also just how I feel about these pages. The first 1 or 2 were a bit of a slog, trying to get the setup right, but once that was done, to the best of my abilities, actually paying off and building on that setup was really fun. One thing I do need to get better at though, and this is something that I've only recently realised after making some promotional and branding images for the series, is I really need to keep better track of and be more consistent with the size of the chains on Jack's broken handcuffs. Like in this page, for example, the links are pretty tiny, smaller than a fingernail, whereas on the series icon, I think they're half the size of a hand palm, so it's nothing too egregious, but going forward, I'm going to try to draw them more consistently big. I'm working through a big back catalogue, so you probably won't see those changes for a good couple of months, but I'm making that declaration now. And just to make sure I don't end on a dour note, I do want to reiterate that this marks a stage in my work on this comic where I start to really enjoy the process and like dig seeing the stuff I wrote and that I've been working on for months and months and months, like finally in a somewhat finished state. So yeah, that's going to about do it. If you guys want to see the page that time-lapsed in this video, then check out my webcomic Wanted Jack and Die, available in scrolling format on Webtoons and Tapas. I also have social medias, which I'll link in the description, along with the Mattias Pilhede hand video, and all the music I used was made by Jerry Terry, so check him out too. Hope you've liked this video, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.